Welcome to Restoration Place, and I'm your host, Lady B. Thank you for joining us for another broadcast. Today we have a very, very special guest, and I'm excited. I'm excited about today's show. I'm going to go ahead and let her introduce herself and tell us all about her and her story. Amen. Go ahead.
Hi, hi everyone. My name is Urmi, and I live in Montreal. I always tell people that I am Canadian by law, but the way I like to present myself to people is that I am Italian by birth and Bengali by blood. And I'm very, very happy today to be here with you, Brianna.
Good, good. I'm glad that I got to meet you. I was looking on your page, and you're you have a very, very interesting journey, and um I would like for us to really dive into it, and because our show is all about healing the soul and the wounds of the soul, and how sometimes we don't even know what we're dealing with because it's so embedded on the inside of us. And so I believe that you're going to bring some enlightenment into a lot of people's their hearts, their minds, and their eyes to see what perhaps something that they might be dealing with, or to just free them and to be able to be who they authentically are.
Sure. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about myself. As I mentioned before, I am Italian by birth and Bengali by blood, and that's something that I find very unique of me, and it's something that I never actually spoke about openly. I always pretty much hide myself from the crowd, from the people. I was never on social media because I was always more concerned about what people would think of me. But a couple of years ago, I decided to tell people that this is who I am, this is my identity, because I went through a lot of, I would say, exploration of my own identity. I struggle a lot with that in the last couple of years, especially also when I was growing up, because basically I was born and raised in Italy from parents coming from Bangladesh. And since a young age, I went through a lot of identity struggle. I never knew how to identify myself, especially because I was brought up in such a Western culture, and all my friends were pretty much Italian, and I did not have anyone that looked like me when I would go to school. It was very, very hard. You wouldn't see that many immigrant kids. Like, all the kids were pretty much Italian, so you would not see let's say Indian or Asian or other types of ethnicity. So I often struggle a lot finding myself into other people. So I was brought up in a very Western culture, and when I would go home, I also struggle a lot because in the household that I was brought up, my parents are very, very conservative, and they really are faithful to their culture, to the tradition. So they are very they have a very strong conservative culture. So when I would go home, I would struggle even there because I sometimes felt like I was not even fitting in that world because I was brought up so much with that Western culture. So I struggle a little bit finding a fit. I struggle a little bit fitting a box because I never felt Italian enough, not even Bengali enough. So this is one of the struggle that I went through. And when I came to Canada, which is a melting pot of different people, different ethnicity, I feel like it helped me to really find my own identity and discover who I am. And even in Canada, I did struggle a lot because when I was doing my university, people would approach me and be like, "Oh, where are you from?" And I never knew what to answer. Like, do I say I'm from Bangladesh? Do I say I'm from Italy? And I tried to answer both ways. So one time I said I'm from Bangladesh, and people would be like, "Oh, hold on, but why do you have such a strong Italian accent?"
Right.
And then I was like, "Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna change. I'm gonna say I'm from Italy." And then they will look at me and be like, oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Why you don't look Italian?" Then I had to spend like 20 minutes explaining the whole history. And I was like, people are questioning no matter what I say. And only 2 years ago, I was like, you know what? I embrace both cultures. Both cultures are part of me, and I'm gonna say I'm Italian Bengali. I don't know, and I don't want anyone to question it. Like, I don't want anyone to question my identity. And so
Right.
this is what I say going forward, that I am Italian Bengali. And of course, now that I've been living in Canada for a long time, I say I am Canadian by law, but my main identity is Italian Bengali.
Wow. Now let me ask you a question. How did you ever talk to your parents about it?
You know what? I did not, and I don't think they would wanted me to talk about it because I think their goal as parents was really to brought up, um, someone who was like typical Bengali. Because even when I would go like outside, they wanted me to wear traditional like Indian daisy clothes.
Hmm.
They wanted me to follow the Bengali traditions. At home we would speak a lot Bengali, but for instance, with my sister, I would speak Italian because it was much more natural for me to speak Italian with her.
Hmm.
Because even the language, the Bengali language that I learned, it was the one that my parents taught me. It's not like I do not know how to write in Bengali. I do not know how to read it. So at home, they were very, very strict. They wanted me to be the typical Bengali girl.
Wow.
So I never spoke about it, but I know that it was not something they would have liked for sure.
So let me ask you a question because I'm a parent and my daughter, I struggled with her because she was going through identity stuff. And because you're talking about your parents, but I'm thinking about myself and how strict I used to be. It was like, this is the dream that I have for you, and this is what I want you to do, and this is how I want you to dress, and this is how I want you to act, and it was a constant struggle. And I could see the depression that was coming on her, and she was almost suicidal. She was suicidal. And I couldn't understand what is the struggle that we're having and why is it that you're fighting against me. I've been very selfish. I had to go back and apologize to her later, but I was like, I was being selfish, but because she had to grow into who she wanted, who she was. And so I'm just wondering, how did you deal with that? Because if you are growing up and you go outside your home, there's a whole nother world out there. And so I know growing up, there's parts of you that want to fit in and, you want to be what you feel you should be. How did you deal with that?
So I never question anything. Like I never question anything my parents told me. Like I always follow what they told me because I was thinking like if I think otherwise, it's probably because I'm not normal. This is how I used to think of myself. I used to be like, you know what, it's probably because I am wrong. Because if both of my parents are telling me like this is how things have to be, it's probably because that's the way to be. So I never question anything. And I always did anything they told me, like how to dress, how to speak, who to hang out with, or maybe I would ask like as a girl, especially a South Asian girl, it was hard for me to go out and hang out with my friends. I never questioned any of these things. And it was only recently that I was like, you know what? I think there is more than one way to do things. It's not only one way. And it was only after that I started to question, it was me and myself questioning all these things, the way to do things. And I was like, you know what? It was not that their way was the correct way. It was just a different way of doing things, and the way I was thinking, it was not wrong. It was actually pretty normal that I was thinking that way. And it was because I was brought up in a different culture. We say like a third culture kid. And
Mhm.
that's how I also identify myself, that I'm a third culture kid at the end of the day. And that's when I started to think, and this is where Canada comes into place, because I started to see like people having different views about different things. And I was thinking, having a different view doesn't necessarily make you abnormal. It doesn't make you necessarily wrong. It just makes you different. You just have another way of thinking, and it makes you an open-minded person. And that's how I was like, okay, I was struggling for something that there really was not really a struggle. And the way I dealt with it, it was really just on my own. It was really a work that I have done on my own. Um, Talking to friends, networking with people, learning other people's story. And that's how I finally came to a realization that, all these years when I felt like I was not normal, I was not fitting a box, at the end of the day, you don't have to fit a box, because then there is no such thing. You can create your own box, and that's enough. And then I started to see other people like me, and I felt less lonely in this journey, because I started to see that there were other people struggling with the same issue, fitting in a different world, meeting people's expectation, especially your parents' expectation, which is, it can be challenging sometimes, because maybe what you want is not what your parents want. But life doesn't have to be like that. And this is something that I have learned. At the end, you just have to do what's right for you. And as parent, I think your job is not to tell your kids what to do. You just have to put it out there and let them discover their world, pretty much. They have to find their own path, which is something that I never expected my parents to do, because I also try to understand that they from the world that they come, they only see one world. They only know one world. So I cannot blame them for that. Whereas the world that I come from, I see many worlds. It's not just one way of seeing the things, there's many different ways, and you can choose whichever you want. So that's how I finally like make that conclusion.
Hmm. Now, when you got to this place where you're at, did you feel like a weight was lifted off of you?
I would say yes. And I do feel very much confident when I do tell people who I am, because I don't like it when people say, okay, you're Bengali, because I'm like, I don't completely identify myself to being fully Bengali. I have this other part of me where I love eating pasta. I love speaking in Italian. I love, using gestures and hands and things like that. And you can see that. You can see that in me when I'm speaking in Italian. This whole Italian side of me comes out of me. And that's what I was like, you know what? When you tell me I'm fully Bengali, that's not who I am. This is not who I am. I know that I am Bengali by blood, but to be honest, I see myself as 50-50,
Hmm.
because that whole Italian culture did play like a big role in my whole life. All my friends were Italian. Um, I studied my whole life in Italian. I feel like I can be myself when I am like with my Italian circle of friends. So this is where I feel like I think it did lift a big weight out of me, and I feel much more confident. I think it helped me to really grow as a person and also to be stronger. That
Hmm.
one thing I was like, you know what, going forward, this is what I'm gonna tell people, and I'm okay with it, and I feel very happy about what I'm saying. So yes, I am like, I feel like I am feeling much more confident.
Good, good. Now, how does your parents, how are they reacting to your newfound freedom?
They do not know. They don't know. They do not know.
Okay, okay.
They do not know, but they do like to tell people that, my daughter was born in Italy, and they do like to tell people that, because basically what my dad tells me is that I am the first Bengali girl to be born in Italy, so he goes very proud of it. So at the end of the day, he's proud of like moving to Italy, raising his family there and stuff like that. But being a Bengali man who has such a big reputation in the community, he still wants to keep that reputation, and he still wants his daughters to keep the tradition going.
Hmm.
So he goes out and proudly say about me to people that, my daughter is this, my daughter is that. But I never came forward to them and said I am Bengali Italian, because in their eyes I am fully Bengali.
Mhm. And I think people don't really get it because so we're in America. So in America, we normally say, and I'm thinking about those who come over from Africa and um, the children that are born here. I have a personal friend, and she says, "Hey, I'm American. My parents are African." And so,
Wow.
I'm part African, but I'm American. So I can see it because, and I can see her life as you're talking. Because when you go inside the house,
Mhm.
it is their way of living. But when she comes outside the house, it's something totally different. And then the questions that she does get, because then here's the accent, right?
Mhm.
Accent comes in, and it's like, you're from where? You're American, are you sure? And it's like, and she has to go into this story. And I think it's very unfair as humans, period, you know,
Yes.
to question and to want to dig, because it does create a level of, oh, now I have to explain who I am. But why do I have to explain who I am? Why can't you just get to know who I am by, this is my name, and to
Mhm.
know who I am as a woman,
Yeah.
because just because my background says this, or my blood this, at the end of the day, I'm still a person
Mhm.
that had lived experiences, and that is what creates or makes me who I am today.
Yes.
You know,
Yes. Yes, and I think it's because we are so used to label people. That's the problem. We always label people with something, and we don't see people as human being, just being
Mhm.
as the person that they are. Why do we have to give them a name? Why do we have to put them in a box, in a bubble, when at the end of the day we're just human beings? Yeah, I do agree with you.
Yeah, I have had to face that in my line of work, and so here it is. I was called to be a pastor, and but I don't look like your typical pastor. But what am I supposed to look like? You know what?
Uh-huh.
How am I supposed to conduct myself? You know, but people have a set idea of this is what it looks like. This is what
Hmm.
I'm supposed to do, and it's like, well, if I did it like that, then that means then I'm really in prison because now I have to go by your set of rules. You know, and it's
Yeah.
like that. I don't think we're created to go by a set of rules that is going to put us in a place of bondage, and we can't grow because when we're in bondage, there's no way for us to grow. How can we grow?
Yeah, and that's how I feel too. This is how I felt when I was growing up, because I was like living in this bubble that I felt like never really evolved as a person. There's so many restrictions around me on how much I could do. Like my parents, they did invest a lot in me. They wanted me to study, but that was the thing. I only studied, which I still loved. I enjoy studying, but sometimes I wish I was able to like hang out with my friends and go stay out late night and things like that. I really did wish I could do that. And some of the things I only explored them like when I was in my 20s, when I was like 24, and that's pretty late, I would say, because everyone does their stuff and when they're teenagers. So
Mhm,
I had to explore a lot of the things only when I was like pretty much an adult and not before. And as a kid, sometimes I used to lie to my parents, and even then I had this sense of guilt that, oh my gosh, I'm lying to my parents. What if they catch me doing something? And even when I was lying to my parents, I was never doing anything bad. Like one thing that I was doing was just going on a shopping mall with my friends. That was pretty much it.
mhm,
And I would feel super guilty about it, and I was worried that what if they catch me and they're not happy about this. So I always like put their priority first. I was much more concerned about them, and I used to think that whatever I was doing was probably wrong, so I never went against it. But it's like you said, when we do not let people be out of this cage, we never let them be the person they are meant to be. So for me, it just came later in life, I would say, pretty much. And this is what I'm also doing in my daily life, through my blog or YouTube channel. I'm trying to just explore these little things that I like, and this is how I'm like finding myself, I would say.
mhm. And I think that's good because, a lot of times people who have experienced what you have, or I say what my daughter has, and I'm the corporate, who did it. But they never get to that place of true freedom. And it develops these mechanisms. I often say codependent. So now part of being codependent is I need you to accept me,
Mm-hmm.
even if it means I have to suppress who I really am. And so a lot of times people don't get to that place of true freedom and discover who they really are, regardless. I think, you know, if you wake up the next day, you still have time to develop into who you are and to really embrace who you are. So I never think it's too late um,
Mm-hmm.
to do it. I think you're just in the prime of your life, and you're gonna where you are soaring. I've watched your stuff, and so you're doing big things. Um, and so, you know, again, a lot of people just don't have that opportunity because they never break free. You
No.
know? And then when you see, it was a story about Miss America. I think she was Miss America, and she ended up killing herself because she had created this grand world for herself, but it was based off of what everybody needed her to do.
Mm-hmm.
She had to keep up these um, personas, and she couldn't show any weakness because then it would be perceived as, you know, and that's so dangerous. I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate for people. And I was almost, for myself, when I walked into this role, I was almost at the place of, wait a minute, so I got to make sure every time someone sees me that I'm prim, I'm perfect. I talk this type of way, and it was like, I can't do it. I can't,
Hmm.
because that wouldn't be who I am. It's too hard. It's too hard to be somebody that I'm not.
Yes, and I think you want to be, first of all, honest to yourself. Like, am I doing this just for myself, or am I doing this to fulfill what the society thinks is normal? And I think this is the problem, that we are brought up in this world doing what's considered normal. But when we think about it, what's normal? Like, anything could be normal if you think about it. And it does impact our mental health, how we think of ourselves. And I think people do not realize it, especially because mental health is not something that people talk about it. People just, it's because you don't see it and everyone thinks you're happy. Like, let's say you put a happy face on Instagram or Facebook, everyone thinks everything is fine. But really, let's be honest, people might be going through a war inside of themselves. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's good, but because, oh gosh, social media is like, oh my gosh, you get on there, and if you're not strong and if you're not careful, that stuff is being planted inside of your brain, so
Yeah.
unsubconsciously, and then you walk around, and then all of a sudden, I know for women, you're looking at a dress, should I wear this?
Yeah.
But then you think about somebody that you saw on Facebook or Instagram or whatever social media outlet you use, and you're like, oh, I don't know if I look good as her. What do you mean you don't know you're gonna look as good as her? Look as good as you are.
Yeah.
So it's not even the clothes, it's how you embrace the clothes. You make the clothes don't make you, you know,
Yeah.
to really understand that. And so, the is she a rapper? Lizzo? Is it Lizzo? I don't know if you're familiar with her, but I think she's a rapper. But anyway, so she's a heavy set lady, and when she walks around as though she's a size 2, but she's just embracing who she is.
Uh-huh.
Because
Yeah.
normal, you don't see heavy size women wearing the halter tops and the belly out and but that's who she's happy with who she is. And and a lot of people were making comments or do make comments and saying that's not normal. Like you said, that's not what you should do. What do you mean that's not what you should do?
Yeah. And I think this goes with comparison. I think the problem is, especially with social media, it can be the best thing ever because everyone is connected on a global level, but it can be toxic too. And especially when you're like looking at other people's, you tend to compare yourself. And this is how it affects your confidence, your self-esteem. And I think like we are brought up in a society where you're just meant to be competing with the person next to you. But the reality is the only benchmark is really yourself. You just want to be a better version of yourself. And when it comes to dressing up, you just want to be comfortable with whatever you feel like wearing. Like, just because it's like when people see someone with a short skirt and they think, okay, now why is she like wearing that? She's not meant to be wearing that because she's probably like trying to attract people. But
Mhm.
maybe that's not the case. Maybe she's like comfortable with whatever she's wearing. And people can be very judgmental, but that's because I think it's in us. We're all like judgmental at the end of the day. As much as we don't want to be that, we are.
Mhm.
Indirectly, we all are, and we all tend to judge and compare. But this is where we have to learn to be, neutral and just accept things as they are, because there are different ways to be whoever you want to be, basically.
Mhm, mhm. And I think it's hard because I know I have to oftentimes catch my thoughts because
Yes.
before you speak a thing, you think it. And so sometimes I have to catch my thoughts, and I'm like, oh, breathe, wait a minute, hold on. What are you thinking, and why are you even thinking those things? And I'm like, somebody thought that about me. Um, but I think if we were more conscious of ourselves, because it starts with ourselves. So we were more conscious and more attentive to our thoughts and to our words. And we were more compassionate about, oh, let me not say that out my mouth because that could be very offensive.
Hmm.
But then again, we're in this society where people are saying, I can say what I want to say. No, you can't. because that's harmful. And we're talking about, identity. It makes people conform.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people conform because they've received so many negative opinions
Yeah.
about, who they are. Their authentic self has been judged and has been put down and really disappointed and let down. So they conform to be something that they're not.
Yeah. But this is what I feel like, what other people say about you, like negative stuff, at the end of the day, it just shows who they are, not yourself. If people are just making negative comments about you, it just shows that they are the bad people and not yourself. Just because you chose to be honest to yourself and you chose to be your authentic self, I mean, kudos to you that you are able to do that, because I think not many people in the society are able to achieve that,
Mm-hmm.
or they don't want to achieve that because they have to meet what the society thinks is normal. Like, the normal life of a person is you go to school, you graduate, you find a job, you get married, you have kids. But I think nowadays we can see that this is the conventional way, but we can see people taking that conventional way, and this is where people are like, okay, this is not normal. Like, like, you should not be doing all these things. But where is this written that you're not supposed to be doing this? Nowhere. Like, you can choose your own path, it's your own journey. You have to walk your life on your own. You will not have all these people around you. And I always think that, when you have this kind of people, they're just like, these people are not meant to be in your life, because you want to have people that are going to uplift you, will cheer you up, will support you to be who you're meant to be. And that's when you like start to like, you know take these people, put these people on the blacklist, and you start to learn about a little bit what you want in your life, which also start from friendship and family and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
This has really, really been good. I'm so glad that you joined us. Can you tell everybody where they can find you at, your links, your how can they, if they can, if it's possible for them to reach out to you? Because I'm sure once the ladies hear this, they're going to be, I want to get to know more about her.
yes. So I have my YouTube channel. It's called Urmi Hossain. That's my full name. I'm also on LinkedIn, so that's my full name again, Urmi Hossain. People can just connect with me. I'll be more than happy to talk to them. I also have my own blog. It's called myways.ca. And I also have an Instagram account, which is called Urma Mio. That's my Italian way of putting it out there.
Okay.
And people can just follow me on Instagram too.
Okay. Now, if you don't mind, can you spell your name for the people so that they can write it down and then go and find you?
Yes. So my name is Urmi. So it's Urmi. And my last name is Hossain. So it's Hossain.
Good, good, good. Yeah, because I know if I would have heard, I would have probably put an E in it and just had it all messed up and
Mm.
well, writing in and said, "I want to find her. How?" So I'm glad. I am. I'm glad that you are on this journey, and I'm excited to see, perhaps next year where you're at. You know,
Who knows? Who knows?
I know. I
Who
know.
knows? Maybe I would have published my first book. Who knows?
Who
Who
knows?
knows?
Look, I don't even like to say sky's the limit. It's like there's no limit to what you can do.
That's it. That's how I'm feeling. That once, this is how I feel about it right now. That because I was so restricted, now that I have this freedom, I can literally have anything. I can
Mhm.
achieve anything. This is how I like to see it, like dominate the world, basically. Global
Right,
domination.
right, right. I've started teaching a series, and I told them, I said, if you can think it, if it has come to your mind, then that means that you can create it. You can
Hmm.
do it. There's nothing that can stop you but yourself. You put your own limits on.
Exactly. It's your own self belief. Like, if you can believe you can do it, you can achieve anything in life. Anything.
Yes, yes. So again, I thank you. I have truly, truly enjoyed this. And hopefully we can bring you back. I'm sure that I'm going to get a lot of questions and I'm going to get a lot of emails,
Yeah.
phone calls like, where is she at? She sounds just like me. You
Sounds good. Sounds good. I will be very happy to be back.
Well, good. Well, good. Well, good. Well, I thank everybody for joining us on today's episode. And don't forget to tune in next Monday at 10 a.m.